All right. Welcome back to another week of the Big Boys Pod. I'm Trevor here alongside my co-host, Coach Cole. And Coach Cole, I just want to give a little shout out here. Tama Lacrosse with the hoodie tonight.
Oh, I see it. Big shout out to Tampa Lacrosse. Those are, I think, last year's fall-winter selections.
Is it? I got last year's collection. Clearance rack.
Hey, we'll see what's coming out this year.
No,
If you're in the Chicagoland area, you need lacrosse gear. Tampa Lacrosse is the spot.
they'll hook it up. And it's in the middle of football season, so we'll get to lacrosse season eventually. But we got a lot to talk about in this show. It was a really fun week last week.
Got a really it was an awesome week.
It was. Really everything that this new Big Ten was made out to be, I think, especially with that marquee Ohio State-Oregon matchup we'll talk about later in the show, and then a fun week this week. But why don't we just jump right into it? Cole, if you want to lead us off. We had a Friday night game, Northwestern versus Maryland.
Yep.
This was one that, compared to some of the last Friday night games we had previewed, felt like could have gone either way. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it could have gone either way. I think I was kind of touting Maryland to kind of get back to cooking. Like I was hoping to see their offense go to work, and that didn't happen this night. So Northwestern won 37-10. It was Wildcat football all day. It was 17-7 at half. And then they scored 20 in the fourth quarter. I mean, looked really good. Aiden Hubbard, defensive end for Northwestern, had that fumble recovery for a touchdown. That was just kind of the final nail in the coffin. So good for Northwestern for getting back on track. Kind of want to hear what you have to say about the game before I turn the thing over to my Maryland thoughts.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was going to give Aiden Hubbard a big shout out there too for that fumble recovery. It's always fun seeing one like that, just stumbling and bumbling his way down. For that last score there.
It's awesome.
You gotta love it. This one, it was like a classic Big Ten win for Northwestern in a way. You know, when we talk about Big Ten football, winning the margins, strong on defense. They got outgained 355 to 283, only 283 yards of offense, but, won by 27 points. Kind of the opposite of one of the games this past weekend we'll talk about later. Points are points, and, you can score, outscore your opponent by 27 points by putting up 70 less yards and take that win. You're not going to question it too much. So good showing by Northwestern, but I think Maryland has some things that, you can build off of from that one. I don't know if that's maybe where you're at, or if you're going to tear down Maryland here a little bit.
Well, I don't even want to tear them down. I mean, four turnovers is tough.
Yeah.
There are lots of turnovers, actually, I think, this weekend in general. Some big ones and some that were not as important. But in terms of Maryland, 0-3 in conference play. Next games they have down the line, USC, Minnesota, Iowa, Oregon, Rutgers. If you're on campus out there in College Park, Maryland, is it time to get ready for basketball?
Maybe.
I just saying, like that's a really tough second half of the year, right?
Yeah.
And they're 3-3. They're 0-3 in the conference. I don't know at this point if Maryland's getting a bowl game. I think if they get 4 or 5 wins, that's like a good look for them. But it's a bad year for them, unfortunately. I think it's time to get ready for hoops out there.
Yeah, they've had a tough schedule for sure. Even going back, they had an Indiana game that I think going into the season, if you're a Maryland fan, maybe you think that's a 50-50 or chalk that one up to a W. And I don't know how many people expected this Indiana team to look that way. And then a game like Northwestern is kind of maybe the same story going into the season, lose that one big, where, if you're sitting there now, maybe just chalk this season up to a learning experience. Coach Loxley there has had some good years. I think maybe the seat's a little warm, if lukewarm a little bit, but I don't think maybe he's at risk for losing his job after just one down year like this. And, see where they go next year.
I don't think so either.
But
I don't think so. No, I don't think so either. I think you're making great points there.
Yeah, that's a tough end of the season. I did not know that's what their schedule looked like. I just saw it's mid-season, so you're starting to see a lot of these like mid-season predictions and mid-season kind of reviews as most teams are 6 games in. And I saw projected standings in Maryland. They had them going 5-7, I think. So they're what are they 2-4 right now and 0-3 in conference play. So
think they're 3-3,
Three and
right?
three. Okay, so sneaking 2
Yeah.
wins out of the remaining 6 games there.
It'll be interesting to see where they pick those up. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely. I think Minnesota is one of those that could go 50-50, although they've looked really good. We'll talk about them.
Maybe I can't. Well, yeah, we'll have to get around to that.
Yeah,
Uh,
Rutgers, who knows? But
so we'll see. That's where Maryland's at. Good Friday night game. Glad
yep,
to see that the Friday night game was kind of fun. I think you mentioned it, just like kind of that Big Ten football feel,
yeah,
which is great to see. Um,
absolutely.
but Saturday was awesome too. I think Saturday, just across football in general, was a really good day for football.
Yep.
And you want to start off with the Wisconsin Rutgers game?
Yeah, let's do it. Loaded day for football to build off what you're
Yeah,
saying there, especially in the Big
loaded.
Ten. And this one, even though the score was a 42-7 Wisconsin win, it's a fun one to watch, and it's a fun story from how we were talking about Wisconsin just a few weeks ago, especially how I was talking about Wisconsin. I was like, are you worried with Luke Fickell there? Are things not really getting built and maybe the way you wanted to see it get built in year two? Had Tyler Van
Mhm.
Dyke, QB1, go down in that Alabama game for the season. I
Yeah,
think this was a statement win from him. And that's what I put on my notes here. Just statement win from Wisconsin. Braden Locke, the backup, looking a lot more comfortable. 20 for 28,
totally.
240
Yeah,
yards and a touchdown. Had a pick, but I think just completing your passes like he did is really, really big. And if I'm talking about the passing game, my big boy last week, Trechikeuna, had 4 catches for about 40 yards again last week. So still getting it done for him. But yeah, big win for him.
yeah,
And they
he
looked
looked
really good
great.
doing it. Yeah. What do you think about this one?
No, he looked great. Actually, I'm glad you brought it up. Shocked you didn't bring it up because I have to give him my big boy of the week,
Oh,
Tawi Walker.
okay.
100.
He's
That was a
silver medal.
because he had a career day, and
Yeah.
I thought about some other guys for this. I honestly did,
Uh-huh.
but the fact that he had a career day, and kind of like you said, it was a statement win for Wisconsin.
Hmm.
198 yards on 24 carries, 3 touchdowns. That awesome 55-yard run.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, that was just great, right?
Hmm.
And in terms of like big boy of the week, that's a statement win. I'm looking for guys who are boosting their draft stock
Hmm.
to keep that Big Ten name looking good in the NFL.
Yep.
And I think he really helped with that this week. So Wisconsin steamrolled. Actually, Rutgers head coach Greg Schiano said after the game, in a quote, the team the whole day couldn't chew gum and walk at the same time.
Wow.
And you know what? I love Greg Schiano for saying that.
Yeah.
I love that attitude. He's calling a spade here.
Yep.
They couldn't. He said that the coaching was off. He said that the playing was off, and just you know what, that's going to happen. And so Wisconsin capitalized all over the field for that, and good for the Badgers.
Yeah. Big win for him. And Tawi Walker, he was my silver medal. I had all of his stat line, typed out,
Okay,
and I was like, yeah, big performance if you weren't going to bring it up. And the other thing I note about it is it seems like it's back to Wisconsin ball in a way. Just keep keep pounding the rock. Strong running backs. It's such a tradition of great running backs last 20, 25 years coming out of Madison.
totally,
And he looks
totally.
like next in line there. So good performance for them and steamrolled them. I think that's what word you use, but great win for them. Anything else on this one, or we had another noon game that we can get into here?
No, that's all the stuff I wanted to bring up. What do you have to say?
No, that's it for me. So our other noon game, this was the big noon slot on Fox, was the Washington Huskies making a long road trip to Iowa City, take on the Iowa Hawkeyes, our Iowa Hawkeyes. Dominant game from Iowa. That's the first thing I put down. Dominant game. That's how I felt watching it. It's how I
Yep.
felt, as soon as that game ended, you can kind of take it in there. All 3 phases of the game, both halves. I've talked a lot about them seeming like they're a team of one half and, a completely different team the next. Looked good all 4 quarters, and got the win 40-16. And Kirk Ferentz got his 200th win as Iowa head ball coach, moves him to second all time in Big Ten wins, just 5 behind Amos Alonzo Stagg, old
Hmm.
Chicago Maroons coach from
Yes, sir.
the
Yes,
days
sir.
of old.
I'm glad you brought it up. I was going to ask if you
Yeah,
knew. Yes. Amos Stagg, right? And he's got a high school name, a Stagg High School.
yeah,
He's got a
yeah.
high school named after him. Um, the man. But yeah, congrats on the bicentennial win for
Hmm.
Coach Kirk Ferentz. Um, Yeah, you said dominant. I got to watch one of a good college friend of mine get married this weekend, and we were watching this game as we were getting ready, and
Yep.
man, it was just fun to watch Iowa go to work. Um, Cade had an okay day,
Yeah.
being 8 for 14. I mean, like Will Rogers went 22 for 34, but he did have a worse QB rating. Neither of them had a higher QBR than 72, so it's not like
Yeah.
they were like on fire, right? And I think that kind of reaches out or points to more so the defensive play
Hmm.
of the day on both teams. Um, but regardless, Iowa looked really good. Drew Stevens hit everything, went 4 for 4.
Yep.
And he actually scored 16 points. So I think that's funny. He tied the Huskies in points for the day.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funny, but good win for Iowa.
Yeah.
Um, and let's keep on rolling.
Yeah. It feels like a long time since there's been an Iowa win like that, where um,
Hmm.
so different from last year, where they won 10 games, but other than a couple of those early season kind of G5 FCS out of conference games, they
Totally,
were nail
totally.
biters, pulling them out, scoring 10 points and getting the win. Just
Yes,
dominant,
it, it,
there was it was kind of a deserved win for Kirk Ferentz in number 200 to kind of just go out and dominate like that. There was a quote from Jed Fish, first year head coach at Washington after the game, kind of giving his flowers to Kirk Ferentz and said he's everything a college coach should be. Um, and I don't know how much of the game you were watching, but pre-game, the ceremonial coin toss was done by a lot of the members of the '04 Hawkeyes team that won the
okay.
Big Ten that year. 20-year
Hmm.
celebration kind of that. And it was really cool that they got to see their old head coach from 20 years ago get his 200th win. And Jonathan Babineau, who had a really good career in the NFL, he was just kind of saying, I love Kirk Ferentz, kind of turned me into the man and the player I am today. So um, Iowa fans, we have our gripes with the man, but could not be more blessed really to have him represent this program for the last 26 years now. And big achievement for him. So the only other thing I have in this game, and we can move on, is just another day from Caleb Johnson. We talked about him a lot. Just want to give him his flowers too. Had 3 touchdowns, 2 on the ground, 1 in the air. A little kind of swing route, just kind of the
Yeah,
corner of
yeah.
the end zone. He got in there and he looked speedy doing it. So he's still looking like the best player on that team, and been really fun to watch this season. Anything else
Totally.
from you for this one?
Uh, One thing is, this is not as good as the Iowa team can be, right?
Yeah.
When we get Cade cooking, when he gets comfortable, that just adds to it, right? Being
Hmm.
8 for 14, like, is kind of tough. I want to see a little bit more from him. But regardless, the play calling is what it is, and the looks will come. So let's
Yeah.
just see him continue to grow into this spot as Iowa has a couple more big games down the line.
Absolutely.
All
All
right, but
right.
yeah, next game. Which one do you want to get into next?
We had that big 2:30 CBS game. Penn State making their first West Coast trip out to USC, took on the Trojans and
Hmm.
escaped from this one. They were down 20-6 at half, ended up pulling out the win, 33-30 in overtime. Um, Game got tied up 3 separate times. The last
Yeah,
one with like 2 minutes to go. Penn State got another touchdown to tie it up for the third and final time to take it to OT. The game came out with the win. The number 4 team in the country almost went down after big upset week the week prior. Didn't see it here. What are your takeaways from this one?
so awesome for Penn State to make the trip before this weekend. Actually, 9 out of the 10 cross country trips
Mm-hmm.
in the conference had resulted in the loss for the traveling team.
Yep.
And I think it's split 50-50 this week. But for them to travel literally over 2,500 miles, it was,
Mm-hmm.
and to literally claw their way back into it, being down 26 at half. Um, Drew Aller, career high yards, awesome. Uh, he threw 3 interceptions, right?
He did.
So they played really well, and he's still able to get his job done. And against a good secondary that USC has, they were able to play and get this all the way down to the very last play and get the kicker out there and make it happen. And a big part of that too, I think, is just the fact that they allow Ryan Barker to take plenty of field goals throughout the game,
Mhm.
so he got comfortable as well. So good for them. Good for Penn State for stealing a win on the road like that.
Yep. Yeah, Aller, the three interceptions is tough for sure, but I think when you're down 14 points like that at half, if you're going to come back, you got to make big plays, and
Totally.
that's not going to just be from your maybe first half playbook of what we've seen from a Penn State team like this of just kind of chipping away at it. Um, you got to take some shot plays, and shot plays high risk, high reward. Didn't pay off a couple times. You know, he got intercepted in the first half twice, I think, and then one other time in the second half once they'd already tied it up. But a lot of those shot plays ended up hitting. I mean, 390 was it 398, 96, something like that, 390
Yep.
plus yards on the day. You know, clearly things are falling in your favor, and you're making some of those throws. So good for him, and good for them to escape. I was going to bring up the West Coast thing too. That it just seems like these road trips are starting to kill teams this season. As we get into next season, the year after, and we've had a few years, and each team's had a lot of these trips under their belt. Maybe this starts to clean itself up a little bit, and you know how to better prepare for it. I know during the Iowa-Washington game, they talked about Washington made the road trip on Thursday morning, adjust for the time a little bit Thursday, did their walkthrough Friday morning, just to get used to the time even a day before, and then go out and play an 11 o'clock game in Iowa City that feels like 9 o'clock for them. So not as crazy of a time at 2:30 for this game Central Time, so 12:30 West Coast, and felt like 3:30
But
for Penn State. But you know, regardless,
regardless,
yeah,
it is a lot. No, you're making a good point, and it is a lot of travel. And we got to be honest, they're student athletes, right? So
yep,
they're missing even more class on these longer trips and longer bus rides. So it does wear down,
yeah,
and we're starting to see that. I think. So I I wouldn't want to be making a bus trip across the country if I'm missing my organic chemistry quiz, man.
no,
And then you're asking me to play against like Illinois?
yeah.
I'm just saying. I don't know.
they're
But
they're
yeah.
flying though, because not to sidetrack too much, but with Penn State, there's something with like USC, and like when they have to go to state college, their plane won't be able to land at the runway because it's too small. And like they're not, you
I,
know, that's literally like a 3-day car ride with a couple stops in there. So you gotta have to
yeah.
fly, and either you fly into like Philadelphia and drive still like 2.5 hours or however long it is, or you land at State College and their runway is made for like little planes.
There's no good answer.
Can't bring a whole football team on a little plane unless you got 50 of them.
No.
So
Yeah. Unless you guys all hey, we're wearing the pads onto the plane, boys.
yeah,
All right.
that's it for that one. Move on to the
Yep.
other mid-afternoon game there. This is the one I kind of referenced earlier, where it was the opposite of that Northwestern Maryland game. This Purdue Illinois game went to overtime as well. Illinois ended
Mm-hmm.
up sneaking it out 50-49, over 1,100 combined yards of offense. Looked like a Big 12 game out there, just scoring left and right. But Illinois escaped in OT. Pat Bryant, your boy from a few weeks ago, with the game-winning touchdown from Luke
Yeah.
Altmaier. And they escaped this one. But wow, Purdue, wow, Illinois. I don't know who is more shocking in this one, or just the game itself. What a crazy scoreline
I,
for
I think the
these two
game
teams.
itself.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, but if you're a Purdue fan, you're super proud of what you just saw. I mean, that second half was insane for them,
yeah,
and they let the floodgates open. And literally, I mean, to score touchdown, 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 still be down. Luke Altmaier throws another, right? And so it's still like a literally 14-point
hmm
difference, and they have to keep getting it done. And they do, and they're literally up at one point, right?
yeah,
And they do the job, and they did everything they had to until it got to overtime. And the fact that you don't get the 2-point conversion hurts, but I respect it, right? After a game like that, you got the mojo. Let's do it. And that's just college football for you. So that is a classic. It's it's going to be pushed aside, unfortunately, in terms of history because of another really great game this weekend.
Yep.
This was a really awesome game.
Yeah. I mean, there's over half the points in this game, or close to half of these points, were scored in the fourth quarter in OT. I mean, just a crazy offensive game there for both teams. And Purdue, yeah, you got to be proud. One of the things I noted down is they just fired their offensive coordinator, Graham Harrell, like 2 weeks ago. Obviously really rough start to the season, like we've talked about. But you make that midseason change and put up 49 points. So, I mean, clearly something's working there, and kind of gave some props to Purdue there, and be proud of that one. And I think that's exactly the right message you got to have there in West Lafayette. Is that, hey, we're a team and we're here to compete now. 1-5 start to the year, 0-3 in Big Ten play, but 6 games left, and bowl eligibility might be out of reach, but you can end the season strong and have something to build as you go into next season. We'll see.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if they can just grab a few wins and continue to play well, then let's continue to play well, and just look to the fact that Purdue is a powerhouse every year in basketball, so they can be super excited for that.
Preseason 14, I think. They're the highest rated Big Ten team. Yeah. Powerhouse.
It's going to be good for them.
Powerhouse men's basketball program. Powerhouse Dick's Sporting Goods.
Can't wait. I think episode 10 is when we finally crack that one open.
Okay. Yeah, we'll save that for
it's so stupid.
We'll save that for rivalry week. How about that?
Okay, perfect. All right. Next game, talk Minnesota UCLA.
Yeah, we'll go a little out of order here just to save the big one for last. Yeah. Minnesota UCLA, your boys did it again. Big win for them.
Brosmer
did it again. Yeah, 2 weeks in a row now with the game-winning score. This one was with 29 seconds left on the clock. Little 4-yard dump off to Darius Taylor to get the 21-17 win out in Los Angeles against UCLA. How do you think they looked in this one?
I think they looked grittier than ever, to be honest. It was 14-17, and it felt like it was going to be a 14-17 game, I think, until that end there. But there were some really good drives by Brosmer where he went like 6 or 7 completions to get down the field in short amounts of time.
Yep.
He had it was 26 on 37 attempts. So not bad, really, at all.
Yeah, that's a good day.
Especially when you have running back behind him like Taylor, who can get plenty of carries and get yards when it matters.
Mm-hmm.
So good for them. I'm really happy if I'm a Minnesota fan watching them rebound like they have this week.
Yeah.
So good for them. And I know PJ Fleck was super excited about this game too.
Yeah. Big rebound. I think rebound's the perfect word. After kind of some disappointing losses there, and trying to look at the back half of their schedule, they get Maryland, like we talked about, which I think if you're Minnesota now, you're thinking that's more than just a 50-50 game, and hopefully get a win there. Illinois could be close the way they're starting to play. Week after that, they get Rutgers, and I think that's a game they can win. So what looked like a team that might be kind of limping to a 6-6 or worse finish, you're 4-3 now. Get that winning record and go from here. But yeah, I mean, Brosmer looked really good, and just the poise to come back again and put the team on his back is really huge for them. And PJ Fleck's getting hyped, of course.
Well, and I want to say he's hyped because Minnesota now beat both USC and UCLA in consecutive weeks. That's four occasions in the past 5 seasons where a team has gone and done the Bruins to Trojans back-to-back week trip.
First Big Ten team to do it?
Actually, no, because I believe Penn State did it, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, they would have.
So they flipped, actually, technically, right?
Yep.
But I expect Penn State to do it. But this is another PJ Fleck certified resume builder. So good for him.
Yeah. I'm talking about them getting bowl eligible. If they get bowl eligible, they're going to win that. He's 5-0.
Hey, let him cook.
Let him cook. Anything else from that one, or we got the big
No,
big game here?
I think it's time to crack it
Let's
open. I
do it.
mean, if you were watching uh, the excitement about this game building up before, I mean, there were kids out there in Eugene with all kinds of signs for Sydney Sweeney, for other football
The
teams,
Duck had the
and
Sydney Sweeney sign too, even.
we're talking about Oregon, Ohio State, the big ooh baby of the game, right? This is what we're talking about. And this is the actual classic that we'll be talking about for years.
Yep.
Final score was that Oregon Ducks win 32 to Ohio State 31. Trevor, start us off. What do you want to say about it?
What a fun game. I mean, everything it was cracked up to be, everything I was hoping it would be when we were breaking this game down last week. And you asked me, like, who do you think wins it? And I went with Ohio State, which didn't end up coming true. But it says I think it's going to be a close one. And if anything, I hope it's going to be a close one. Don't, if it was Ohio State that had the blowout win or Oregon that had the blowout win, nobody wants that. And it was a close game, and it delivered on all fronts there. Back and forth, 7 lead changes in that game. And Oregon, you hate to say escapes, but I mean, Ohio State had the ball and was driving there, and I don't know how much of the end of the game you saw, but the 12th man on the field to get, burn the clock, but just give up 5 yards. And then Will Howard making just a poor decision on that last play of the game. I mean, it was electric, I think is the best way to put it. Such a back and forth game. Drama in the first half. Sure. Trayshawn Howard getting ejected for spitting on a guy. Get that out of here.
Can't do that.
What are we doing?
Can't do that.
But to not let that phase them and just keep on making big plays and taking down a team like Ohio State is, I mean, talk about statement win for Oregon. I think proved to the country and to the Big Ten that they're here and they're the same Oregon that you've grown to know and love. That's been in the Pac-10 and the Pac-12 for years. They're a new conference, same team. That was a fun game. Just
it was a fun game.
Yeah.
So let me ask you then, because you kind of alluded to it, that 12th man on the field.
Yeah.
Is this coaching masterclass, or is this a little bit of luck tied with the fact that a quarterback thought he had a second left in the game and time just wasn't on his side?
Coaching masterclass. If you're just talking about the 12th man on the field, coaching masterclass. Knowing the rule book.
I'm talking about the end of that game. Yeah, the fact that played out the way it did.
I mean, the end of the game, it seemed like Ohio State had control. They were down until, I think, the 30-yard line, which would make it a 47, 48-yard kick. With the timeout.
You hit to win that game.
Yep. And then the OPI on Jeremiah Smith there on that right sideline was really tough, pushed him back, and that's what kind of put him in the position of needing to get more yards at the end there. So a couple of lucky breaks kind of fell Oregon's way, but you capitalize on it by running 5 seconds off the clock with the ineligible man. And played, strong enough pass defense to force Will Howard to step up and try to get it with his legs, and ran out of time. On the other hand, the coaching performance, Ryan Day did not use the timeout after the OPI, take the 10-second runoff, or not. As soon as the refs get it going,
right.
Play clock starts. You didn't call a timeout. The clock was running. They used like 6 seconds off the clock right there. It may be a mistake for him. I know you got to save the timeout for the field goal, but there's 25 seconds left on the clock, and you still have to get 20 yards to get the field goal then after that. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
Next play is the most important play, that's for sure. And I'm glad you brought up Ryan Day. I mean, he's now 1-7 against teams ranked in the top 5.
Yeah.
Lost 4 of them in the top 5. Lost all 4 of them, mm-hmm. Right? And those have been some pretty big games too. I know a lot of Ohio State fans like Ryan Day, and like his passion for the team. He's really puts himself in really tough spots when stuff like this happens, and like you said, that happens at the end of the game, and you leave a timeout in your back pocket, or I'm sure he'll be thinking about certain things. He said himself that we're not going to complain about just one call, and we're going to own this win.
Yep.
And I appreciate him owning it. And he, like, the better team won today. The more composed team won.
Yeah.
That day. And Oregon is giving themselves a really good look at being a 1 or 2 seed in the playoffs.
They are. And, Ryan Day, everybody's got to answer the questions. I don't know if it came up, but I think you learn from it. There's a great chance these teams meet each other again in Indianapolis here in
I think so
a couple
too.
months'
Totally.
time. There's a chance they meet each other in the playoffs, depending on how that bracket looks. And, it was a big test for both teams. I think we mentioned that last week. It was, they each kind of had a little bit of a test. But first, we're national championship aspiring teams. Let's go face off against another national championship aspiring team. And
it was awesome.
A 1-point game. And going back and forth on that final Ohio State drive. A couple things go differently. We're talking about what a performance by Ohio State and Will Howard and getting it done and all that. And it's a completely different conversation. So I think that's just evident of these teams are legit. They're going to be here. Maybe one of them gets bumped out of Indy, but they're going to be, at this time, you got to think both teams are locks for the playoff. There's a chance they meet each other again, or they're going to be playing for more than just week 7 regular season
right
game,
Yep. Yeah, there's definitely going to be some bigger chips on the line. I think right now a couple teams that might be knocking on the door behind them would be Penn State, right? Who could throw a wrench in that. But
they get a game versus Ohio State that I think will be a good barometer a couple weeks from now. They'll kind of see where those teams kind of square up with each other. And if Ohio State takes that loss, I think they still would make the playoff at 10-2, but if they get past Michigan, that is, and everybody else in their schedule. But we'll talk about that in a couple weeks, I guess. Before we move on into standings update and next week's preview, my big boy of the week is Dylan Gabriel.
Okay, I was waiting for it.
And not only just because he's kind of the MVP player on now the number 2 team in the country and number 1 team in the Big Ten, but he also, he had a great game. And if you're 10, it was like 10.5 million viewers watched this game. Which I mentioned last week too. If you're NBC, you're loving a game like this is what you signed up for. Spotlight's on him. Big game, and he delivered and performed. 23 for 32, 341 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kept the ball out of Ohio State's hands with no interceptions. Also ran 4 times for 32 yards and got 1 on the ground. So 3 touchdown day for him. Really a difference maker. He came back out of the locker room and celebrated with a lot of the fans. I don't know if you saw this little clip. Came back out of the tunnel and they had like a little fence there, but he grabbed like a couple things and signed them and taking pictures of everybody. Just kind of lavishing in that moment as he deserves to. And we'll give him another moment to lavish in here as your big boy of the week for us this week. So good job, Dylan Gabriel.
Good for him. That's a good call. He gave himself that Oregon Ducks win. He's like, I am an Oregon Duck QB for life, and that's my astounding win. One of them, Coach Lanning said that like every time he looked at him, he saw a guy who was composed and ready for the next moment.
Yeah,
and that's what the game was. So that's a really good call, really good pick. I was gonna ask. I was wondering if you forgot.
No.
But no, you're just waiting for the end, and that's a good play.
Heisman frontrunner?
If you think there's a guy out in Boise State
who's been
playing crazy, his yards after contact is second in his conference.
You seen the way he stands? You seen the...
Yeah, I've seen the memes.
Terrifying.
Hey,
you line up against that? Terrifying. All right.
We'll see. I'd love to see a Big Ten team play Boise State in a
that would be really fun. Oregon did already play him, and that came down to a last-second field goal. So, as the season goes on and Boise State keeps playing, I don't think there's no reason they couldn't be a top 5 team come seeding time and maybe sneak one of those first-round buys when the bracket's out.
Good.
All right, let's take a quick look at the standings here before we move on to next week's preview. We are down to 3 undefeated teams in the Big Ten now. Oregon, Penn State, number 2 and number 3 in this week's rankings, like we talked about. And the number 16, Indiana Hoosiers, who had the week off.
Number 1 in your hearts. Number 1 in our hearts right now.
Yeah.
I think they're leading my Big Ten right now, with all due respect.
And because it's an ABC order here, they are listed first. So first place in the Big Ten, Indiana Hoosiers. 3-0 in
Thank
conference,
you.
6-0 overall, and carrying that number 16 ranking. We didn't get to talk about them yet because they didn't play this week. I'm excited to talk about them here later in the show. So those three teams leading off. Got a lot of teams sitting here at 2-1, include Illinois, Ohio State after that first loss, Nebraska, Iowa, and Michigan, and Wisconsin. Sorry, all at 2-1. Minnesota and Washington at 2-2. Some 1-2 teams: Rutgers, Michigan State, Northwestern, USC at 1-3. I don't know how many people thought that going into this season, but you drop one to Michigan early. You drop that game to Minnesota that kind of came out of nowhere. Now you drop this one to Penn State, and
the losses are stacking up. We're still riding with Miller Moss. These losses aren't bad losses. It's just gonna look bad on paper.
Yeah.
And with Anthony Lucas actually having like the lower extremity injury, and he's out for a season, their defensive end, that could really hurt USC too. We didn't even bring that up earlier. I didn't really want to, but we're still riding with Miller Moss. But sorry, get back to it. I didn't mean.
No, you're good. No, absolutely. I'd ride with Miller Moss the rest of the season. I think he's a great quarterback, and it's still a really good team. And in fact, you mentioned it's some tough losses. They're outscoring opponents in the Big Ten, 109 points for, 105 points against. So just a couple bad breaks, kind of. That OT game goes the other way. That Minnesota game goes the other way. They're sitting at 3-1, and it's like that Ohio State Oregon game said the same kind of phrase here, but we're talking a completely different ball game. But tough luck for them, 1-3. And then a few teams pulling up the rear without their first Big Ten win this year: Maryland, Purdue, and UCLA. Other team from LA struggling this season. So SoCal teams getting a rude welcome. Maybe as the weather changes here a little bit, teams won't be ready for that warm weather if they go out there late in the year, and it's a home field advantage for them. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? You know what? Good luck, right? And good thing is both those schools have awesome basketball programs too, so it'll be exciting to watch them take their trips out and about and play some of these basketball programs that we know and love in the Big Ten. So really looking forward to the basketball season as that stuff shakes out. But still plenty of football left. And these standings can still shake out a little bit, and still some teams really looking for bowl eligibility.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to Week 8. Such a big week last week. We kind of used a lot of the show, so we'll have to kind of speed through a lot of these. Fortunately, there's some matchups that on paper we think should go one way, so we'll just cover those quickly. And a couple big matchups still. We'll keep this one moving along. Friday night, Oregon goes to West Lafayette, plays the Spoilermakers on this Friday night game where spooky things have happened, and in a city and a football team that's made spooky things happen. Do you think it happens this weekend? Does Purdue get the upset?
Oh my goodness. I can't believe it. I can't believe you would even bring it up. No, I think like you said, I mean, you just gave your big boy of the week to Dylan Gabriel. And he's probably feeling really good right now. So a trip out to West Lafayette will be no issue. I think that they will get even the cover to happen. I think it's 27 and a half.
Yep.
So there you go. Don't even put any money on Purdue. It's not a joke, guys. It's just they have to play each other. So Friday night, right? To be honest, it's going to be October 18th, Friday night. I'm hoping your high school football team is playing some like conference playoffs games or something. That matters now. So So if not, you can turn this game on or go play Call of Duty or something. But we got some good Saturday games too.
Yeah, which Saturday morning, big noon kickoff. This one I talked about, I think, on our second ever episode a month ago at this point.
You did. Crazy foreshadowing.
Yeah, and it got big noon. I was hoping it would happen. I was kind of hoping Nebraska would also be undefeated and we'd see a 6-0 battle. They dropped that game to Illinois a few weeks ago, but still at 5-1, going to Bloomington to take on the 6-0 Indiana Hoosiers, who are favored by 6.5. I'm really looking forward to this one. Big test for both teams. This is Indiana's biggest test of the season by far. There's one kind of knock against them. It's been a pretty weak schedule. They've dominated. They have yet to even be trailing in any game at any point in 6 games in. They've never been losing. They're tied at 0-0. We're taking off with it. Maybe that changes this weekend. I'm going to take Indiana in this one. I've been rocking with Curtis Rourke and the Hoosiers all year.
Yep.
But I think it'll be a close one and good test for both teams. How do you see this one shaking out?
I see this one probably going the same way you think. We're Curtis Rourke fans over here. Unless Dylan Raiola is like damn near perfect and the Nebraska defense gets steals, stops. There's a reason why Indiana's undefeated, and they're not stopping anytime soon. So I'm really looking forward to this game. I think the other 11 o'clock or the other two 11 o'clock games will be good too, to be honest. But yeah, we're both going IU here. I think IU honestly covers.
Yeah, I like that. Like that pick too. Home field advantage will be huge in that one.
Yes, sir. Bloomington.
Bloomington, let's ride.
Let's ride.
Moving on, Wisconsin going to that very fun Lakefront Stadium in Evanston, taking on the Northwestern Wildcats.
Trip. That's a pretty quick trip.
It is a quick trip.
Get home same day.
Yeah. You could probably leave that morning and be just fine. Even though kickoff's at 11 o'clock. Wisconsin's favoring this one by 7. Both of them had big kind of blowout type wins last weekend.
They did.
Maybe see if Wisconsin blows out in this one. I think they get the win. I think the way they've been playing, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of end up blowing the doors off Northwestern. No offense to any Northwestern Wildcat fans out there. But I think this Wisconsin team's got a different swagger about them now the last couple of weeks and getting more comfortable kind of as the years has gone on, and Braden Locke getting more comfortable in that starting role. And I like them to cover 7 points and walk away from Evanston. Easy drive home.
I'm going to have to fade you on this one.
Okay. Think Northwestern gets it?
And I think Northwestern gets it. And I totally get what you're saying because, man, did Wisconsin build the mojo? I mean, I gave my big boy of the week to a Wisconsin guy, right? They were stacked. I just have a feeling. I have a feeling that Northwestern steals this one. They're back home. They're going to be 4-3. There's going to be 2 4-3 teams after this. And Wisconsin's going to have to fight even harder to get bowl eligible after this. So I know that the money line is looking or the money everyone's picking Wisconsin by a little. But I say Northwestern is just as good after watching this past weekend. They can make it happen. So that'd be cool to see. So I'm fading you. I'm feeling it. It's going to be a Wildcat morning on the lakefront. And we'll see. Wisconsin, if I'm wrong, you're right. Wisconsin can have an easy ride home and get some Culvers. But if I'm right, I'm going to feel good about it.
You get Culvers either way. But you are our
true.
Win or lose, get Culvers. You're our big boy on the ground in the Chicagoland area. So I thought of this as you're picking Northwestern. Maybe this is a factor. What's the weather looking like there? Is it going to be if it's a cold, windy day, Saturday morning, it's an 11 o'clock start, you could still be, you get into October, it could be a 40-degree kickoff. And is that wind gusts off the lake? Is that a favorable look for Northwestern?
Well, I'll tell you what, I wasn't anywhere near the lake today, and at our practice, it was probably like a 10-degree difference for feel and wind chill. So It was pretty cold out there.
Yeah.
And this weekend, it's supposed to warm up a little bit more. The high is going to be closer in the 70s. Okay. If it actually taps out to that high, who knows? I think it's going to be kind of like that perfect football weather where you can see your breath, right? And if you're playing football, it feels good. And if you're a fan, you've probably got a couple layers on, right? And if you've been having a couple drinks, you're probably feeling really good, right? Hoping someone's throwing some hot dogs on the griddle or whatever. But I just think everything's going to go Northwestern's way, especially if the weather's good.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Can't be there. Gotta have a work event, unfortunately. But I'll be checking my phone, and we'll be following along. Don't worry about it.
Of course. All right, moving on to the last. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, no. Yeah, move on. We got one more 11 o'clock.
Yeah, one more noon game here. UCLA making the gigantic cross country trip. I don't think you can get farther than this. Going out to Piscataway, New Jersey, to take on the Scarlet Knights. That's going to be feeling like a very early start for them. 9:00 game for them Pacific folks, and noon for Rutgers at home. So maybe they do what Washington did last week and try to travel earlier or later in the week here, but a couple of days ahead of time. Rutgers is favored in this one by 4.5. Kind of got the doors blown off this weekend. Maybe kind of counting their lucky stars that they get a team like UCLA to recover this weekend, since they have not looked the best so far this year. Still looking for that first Big Ten win. And I think that it seems like the time is a factor. And I think maybe some of the games this week, it wasn't. You split 2-2 on who was traveling. Just Minnesota being a better team than UCLA, Penn State being a better team than USC. They can still kind of pull it out despite the time difference.
Totally.
Rutgers has the advantage, and they're the better team, I think. So I think 4.5 is no problem, and they clear this one. Maybe you disagree on this one too, and we split, but I like Rutgers.
You know what? No, I'm right there with you. Actually, I think I picked this as soon as I read the Greg Schiano quotes after the game. the fact that he was so mad, and I can't imagine what that locker room looks like if he's willing to say in front of the team, like the press, that they can't chew gum and walk at the same time. That came off way harsher in the locker room.
What does that drill look like, you think?
Oh man, dude! You know what? I don't know, because they got some. They're very unorthodox in their play calling, so I'm sure their practices are very quick paced and unorthodox. I'd love to be boots on the ground. If any Big Ten coach wants to have us out to watch your practices and give you an analysis of how we think you look, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Just get it for free. I won't even charge you for that. I'll come out for free and watch your practice. But no, yeah, I'm right there with you. Rutgers, I think, is being honestly disrespected with the 4.5 line. I think they'll clear that, no problem. So good for them. They'll move to 5-2 and be one win closer to probably going bowling.
Yeah, I think so too. Kind of a lot of preseason people, including myself, had them pegged to maybe be an 8-win team, and right on pace for that right now. Looks good for them, and one step closer this weekend. All right, moving on. Mid-afternoon, we got a couple of games here. First one to kick off is at 2:30 on CBS, that big mid-afternoon time slot. Michigan goes to Champaign, take on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Interesting game for both these teams, I think. Michigan's favored by 3 in this one. I'm going to take Illinois. I think the home field advantage is going to come into play here. And Michigan has seemed very suspect now the last kind of all year, but I think after that loss last week, I think there's some question marks with this team still, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And that Illinois team can definitely hold their own on defense. What they did to Penn State earlier this year, a little fluke last week, but they take care of business here. What are your thoughts on this one?
I agree with you. I'm gonna go Illinois. I think it's interesting that you say there might be a little bit of suspect with Michigan, because if I'm like a Purdue fan, I'm saying, how are you not saying Illinois suspect? We literally just worked them, and if there was a fifth quarter, it probably would have been ours to take. Well, actually, I guess it was a fifth quarter, but that's besides the point, right?
Full fifth quarter. Run some plays.
Apples and oranges here. The important thing is Michigan's going to Illinois. It's a top 25 matchup.
It is
22-24, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these two teams, America thinks, the experts think, AP poll thinks, we think that these teams are pretty much neck and neck. So it's going to be a really good game. The fact that it's at 2:30 right after these other games, I think it's a perfect game to turn on and watch. I'm going to pick Illinois as well. I think Illinois needs to win this to just kind of continue that mojo that they've been building.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have the mojo after last week. I don't think Luke Altmaier gets phased by much, but Michigan defense can stop some good quarterbacks.
Yeah, they can. That defense is still very stout. I just think this is where I'm at, Iowa fan homer in a way, the way I'm approaching this. I really wish Iowa played Illinois this year. I think it'd be a really fun game. like way more fun than that
I
game
know.
has been a lot.
It's
of the
one we're
time.
missing.
It is one we're missing this year. It's not a rivalry game on paper. For myself, knowing a lot of people from the Quad Cities area, makes it feel like a rivalry game. That Quad Cities, it's 2 on one side of the border, 2 on the other side, and that's like a 50-50 split between Iowa and Illinois fans. So it seems like it could be a rivalry game. And the comp here, I think, is this game because you had Iowa kind of dismantle a Washington team that kind of dismantled a Michigan team. I wish Iowa could play either Michigan or Illinois, but Illinois kind of for that rivalry aspect. But I think if Illinois wins this game, it makes me feel a lot better about Iowa. So that's why I'm picking Illinois. Whereas if Michigan wins, I don't know. Hard to do comps like that 1-to-1, but
if Michigan loses, I think it's just like even more disappointing for Michigan for this season, and I think they're kind of in like a need to win position, and because of that, that also kind of puts Illinois and Allmeyer and Pat Bryant in a position to go and ball out again. So it's almost a must win, and that's a perfect 2:30 game to throw on.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one other afternoon game. This one kicks off at 3:00 on FS1. USC also got stuck with the second longest trip you could do from LA going to Maryland.
Literally, we're doing cross country trips all week.
Vegas likes USC a lot more in this one than they like UCLA. They're actually favored by 7 points in College Park. This is a Maryland team that the wheels have started to fall off. Hyped up that defense quite a bit. Kind of looked the part last week. What do you think on this one?
I have hyped up the defense. I mean, like I still like their defense. I mean, they're 3-3, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just haven't won a conference game, and I mean, their wins are against Villanova and against Virginia. So I mean, those are like lacrosse schools when we think about it, or basketball schools. And so is Maryland to a degree, obviously.
Melo Trimble, man.
Exactly. The important thing here is USC is getting an opportunity to bounce back, I think, after kind of having the bad taste in their mouth. So if they can go and get a win on the road after losing a home game and kind of wash that taste out of their mouth, that would be a good look for them. And I think it's just kind of the ball's in their court, right? It's USC's game to handle. Otherwise, Maryland can go and steal this.
Yeah, I think so too. 7 points is not a crazy Vegas line by any means, and USC's look vulnerable, like you said. So maybe Maryland pulls one out. If they do, that's a lot of question marks for USC's team, and I think already people are getting impatient with Lincoln Riley. It's third year now as head coach there.
I'm impatient with him.
Yeah, if they drop this one, I think
I think it's fair to start asking.
Yeah, I think the seat gets burning hot if you're 3-4. Maybe you get a grace year, just first year in the Big Ten, learn the ropes a little bit, but this is a team.
No, go ahead. Yeah, you can be great. No, you can be gracious, but I mean, it's still a game of football.
Yeah,
and like guys have been fired for way less.
That's true. Yeah.
So we'll see. I think it'll be interesting at the end of the year. I think Miller Moss is it's his team, and it's up to
his
him
pod.
Man, if he wants to come on here too, we'll make that happen.
Yeah.
Right.
We got room on the screen here. There's plenty of room over there.
We can make it happen.
Yeah.
We'll do some formatting. That's fine. Dude, whatever. No worries.
Last one.
We'll watch this game though too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, but last game of the day, the game that we're excited to chat about, the Iowa Hawkeyes playing Michigan State Spartans.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor, what are your thoughts?
So I'm actually going to Lansing next week for work.
Okay.
On Tuesday.
Okay.
Not going to be able to make it for the game or anything like that. But
boots on the ground though.
Boots on the ground. Maybe see the crater that the Iowa Hawkeyes will leave at Spartan Field, or
snap,
or get there immediately, feel the aura in the air after a painful Hawkeyes loss, and start crying. We'll see. Iowa's favored by 6.5 on the road in East Lansing. It's a tough place to play. It gets really loud in there. But Iowa, if this last game, if this was flip-flop the Washington and Michigan State weeks, and last week at this time we're talking about going into this Michigan State game, I would be, I don't know, maybe Michigan State gets it done. I'm pretty confident in Iowa to take care of business here, the way they played against Washington. Spread is 6.5. The over-under, I think, is the more fun one to look at here. It's 41.5. A lot of Iowa's over-unders have been kind of in that low 40 range all season. Vegas has yet to give them some benefit of the doubt the way the offense has started to look.
Smart. They've been clearing them.
They have been. They almost cleared it by themselves last week versus Washington. So I'll pick Iowa. I won't pick them to clear the spread. Maybe this will be a close game. It was last year versus Michigan State in Iowa City. But I will take the over-under. Let's call it 31-27 final score.
Okay. That's I kind of see what you're saying. 27 is a lot of points for Michigan State to score. The most
I think they got the quarterback to do it.
Well, the most points they scored in the last 5 games was, I guess it was 40 against frickin' Prairie View, right? So we're not talking about like a team. The last time they scored 27 points was Maryland 5 weeks ago. Otherwise, they haven't put up more than 20. What I'm trying to say,
a rough schedule too, to be fair.
Yeah, and they have, but it's like I was saying earlier that Cade has to have a really good day. I want to see Cade bounce back from last week. Even more so, Childs is just going to have to like really have a day. And he's had some definitely growing pains this year, like we said. And whatever quarterback can find their rhythm sooner and feed into their team, I think that's going to help. I also think Caleb Johnson is just a cheat code in this game, and he'll open it up to allow Cade to kind of throw some deeper looks if we want. So I do think they clear this. I do think that they beat the spread. I think that it will be a close game, but I still think they win by a touchdown or more.
Yeah, I mean they've looked the part in all their wins this year. The closest comp, they've both played Ohio State. Iowa lost 35-7. Michigan State lost 38-7. So on paper, Iowa's,
true.
If we're playing some transitive property, A plus B, whatever. I know it if I sat down and thought about it. You get what I'm saying.
You know what?
3-point Iowa win.
Yeah, okay. I'd say the bigger thing there is that Ohio State's a wagon, and even more so, the Ducks own them.
Yes. That is the biggest takeaway, I think, from last week.
From last week, from across the country, really, right now. It's a Ducks nation.
Quack, quack.
Is number 1 still Texas?
Texas held on to it, yeah. But Oregon's getting like a good number of votes in the AP pool.
I think
we're only I think we're still like 3 weeks out from the first college football playoff poll. Maybe week 10, I think, is when that drops. First after early November there. Yeah, that will be the first. And there's some games in between there that will get kind of more metrics on a lot of these Big Ten teams and these SEC teams as well of where they sit. But I think Oregon can easily get that number 1 ranking by the time that comes out. Texas has a test this week. They only play Georgia. Not an SEC pod, but that'll be another fun one if you're just
I don't want to feed into
college
that
football
too much.
fan. Yeah,
two teams we are missing in the Big Ten this week. Penn State.
Yep.
They're off. And then Ohio State as well is off. So 2 teams that are still in that top pack of the conference. I think the bigger question this week is, does Indiana hold on and stay undefeated, or does the Bucks stop here? Yep,
I agree with that. Their first big test. I really want Indiana to win it. We'll see.
So do I. Wow, we're all for Bloomington.
All right. Any last thoughts from you? Otherwise, does it for me.
No, nothing really. We're looking forward to it. We actually are going to be going out to Iowa games soon. Probably going to be doing some boots on the ground action there. So if there's anything you want to see from us or anything you want to see in general, Let us know. Always love the feedback. Make sure you're watching on YouTube, telling your friends to watch. Always love to hear what people have to say.
Absolutely. If you see us at the Iowa game, come and say hi.
Yeah, why not?
All right. And with that one, we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace out.